As sentient beings, we find ourselves thrown into a world that inflicts immense pain and suffering. So having the option of a graceful exit should be seen as a basic, universal human right. Since our existence is better to never have been, we should all have the right to die. Welcome to the Right to No Longer Exist, a Right to Die podcast, featuring your hosts, Danny, Kevin, and Amanda. In this show, we attempt to change the perception of society's views of voluntary euthanasia and what true autonomy could look like.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to A Right to No Longer Exist, a Right to Die podcast. I'm here with Amanda and Danny. And how are you guys doing today?
Yeah, we're doing great. We're all looking forward to the first podcast we had in a few months. I think it's been like February actually. So we're ready to rock and roll.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not doing too bad. It's cold.
It's cold. Oh, it's funny because it's hot where I am and I'm struggling with the heat. So it's like, but it's 72 and I'm like I'm melting. So summer's not my favorite. But anyway, welcome to the 7th episode, I think it is, to the podcast, and we hope you have all been well and hanging in there. And I know that's a loaded statement in its own because the topic itself is about not being able to cope. And so I feel weird just even saying I hope you've been well, because obviously I hope you've been good, but I hope you've been less bad is a better way to put it, I guess. But I hope other listeners too are just have regular lives and they're just listening and hoping for this to become a thing, and it's not just about genuinely struggling people. That was kind of one of my arguments actually too, was kind of this idea that like there's this like pressure for people to feel positive all the time, and you're somehow kind of a Debbie Downer if you just even talk about these facts or these truths, and it should be more of a conversation that's just neutral. To me, it's just like, this is a topic of an issue, like we talk about it with certain politics or something, let's say, and it could be like passionate, but it's still this neutral ground of, you're not a good person or a bad person, this is just what you believe or this is what you don't believe, to be policy. But it gets ugly and weird when it becomes the right to die, because now there's this pressure about murder, right? There's claims made about the right to die where people, the pro-lifers, can like genuinely say you're murdering someone, if you physically help them, let's say. That's like a massive problem and issue, I'd say, is like you're helping a loved one, and it's just so amazing how far of a cavern difference we are from people that are claiming that you're literally murdering someone, when we think it's something that you're genuinely doing a loving, caring act, probably the most loving thing you could do for that person of their entire life. And trying to like bridge that gap somehow is important, because we should get there, but it's like there's so much damage that's caused by that, and so much pressure by people being like, I don't want to help because this and that, that's the law, I get it, but we should be here questioning the law. Is the law, just because something's the law, right, doesn't make it okay. Slavery was a thing and that was law. But anyway, we can question in a major way, is helping someone die a bad thing? Are you genuinely murdering someone? Do you belong to be thrown in prison for years over it? The Jack Kevorkian scenario, we would argue was a loving thing. This guy was amazing. And so many other people, though, you say that word, you just say his name and people are like, ew, like you just said a bad word, in the house. Anyway, I was just thinking about, kind of rambling, but I was just curious what you guys think about, like, how do we bridge that gap of like this extreme notion of helping someone is murder and you're going to go to jail. And our ideas of thoughts that helping someone is okay. And in fact, people make this like mental pass, right? That you get a free pass in their heads when it comes to death with dignity, or if it comes to euthanasia in other countries where it's legal. They just go, oh, that nurse is doing something loving, you know what I mean? Or palliative care even is, people are kind of, they are doing nice things by helping them die. So anyway, I am just trying to think about why is it so bad to just help someone die? Why is that the key component of law, to be, you're an instant murderer that's done an awful thing, but if they do it themselves, it's totally okay. We don't care. It's not even illegal. Why is that such a thing?
Yeah, that's such an excellent point. You know, the thing is consent and intent. That matters. Consent matters. If you want to die and someone consensually helps you die, then no, that's not murder. Murder is non-consensual. And, you know, we are all being murdered by nature every day. We all have, you know, from the time we were born, we are dying. And it's like, people have this thing that, okay, it's okay if nature murders you, because, you know, but anyway, you know, we are all terminal. And if somebody like Jack Kevorkian, which was a political prisoner, in my opinion, wants to help somebody relieve all of their problems, then they are heroic. They are doing a service to humanity. And everybody else, the pro-lifers or the anti-right to diers, they're scared to death of it. It reminds them of their own mortality. You know, they want to pretend like, you know, we can have safety and security and everything is going to be all right. And they, you know, a lot of them just try to make themselves to believe that, but they impose that belief on others. But yeah, I mean, if you're consensually and peacefully ending someone's life, it's not murder. It's mercy. It's mercy.
Yeah. So like, Amanda, what do you think about that as far as, you know, changing people's minds about this like, you help someone kill themselves, you're now this murderer that's going to get a decade in prison. And changing that's not the case. That's not what's actually happening here, you know?
Yeah, I have to say first off how amazed I am continuously by how many people I have a conversation with about the subject with who don't think that there are going to be any legal repercussions to help somebody. I can't tell you how many people I've run into who go, no, it's a gray area, you know, because you have the, you know, the person is doing it themselves, you're just sort of there, you're not in any way, you know, you're not in any way going to be held responsible. It's like, I just think people are, I don't know where that ignorance comes from, like why that particular belief is in people's heads. Like, I don't know what exactly put that into so many people's minds, that it's some sort of gray area that they won't receive some sort of blowback from. But it's shocking. And I have to think that that's a major piece of the activism of the right to die that needs to be developed. I mean, the voice of those who have some intention of eventually helping a loved one, or who might be in that position, that want to do it and but know that there's going to be some sort of repercussion. That seems to be a really missing voice. You know, that the voice of the voice of the long-term planning in the eventuality of someone's end. Not just in terms of the person that wants to go, but the people around them. I mean, that is often such a huge missing piece of the conversation as a whole. Like, it's not, if we're talking about the right to die, it really shouldn't ever just be about I mean, obviously it should be what the person wants in question, but like, as a more developed, you know, movement, like, it's also about like what, you know, giving everybody else access to being able to help somebody, and the conversations around that, and the making them equipped to argue for it, and to be able to articulate it, and then to be able to carry it out and to remove all those senses of guilt, because it's not murder, and we do it all the time. I mean, it happens in hospice all the fucking time. People are half gracefully exited, oftentimes by a family member, by the way, because the nurses are not allowed to administer some of those medications, and so it's kind of up to the family member anyway to administer the massive doses of morphine and Haldol and whatever else. So I we're kind of there anyway. I guess is the point I'm trying to make. But everything is so hush hush, and everything is so there's an unbelievable amount of denial about what's already taking place. We just got to set people into what's the reality of what's happening now, find some way of normalizing it and destigmatizing it, and just feel like it can evolve from that point, because I just don't think that. I think there's plenty of people who are not blind to the need for there to be no legal repercussions towards helping somebody.
Yeah, and it's to be put in a situation where you're afraid of your legal situation and being put in jail and all these legal repercussions to help the person you love, and so you're sitting there watching them suffer, knowing you can't do anything at all, is a crime of itself, right? The law itself is committing a crime by not allowing this us to have this open, free expression of what we want and what we should receive. And so the question is just like, if we're so close, if those dots are so close connected, and people are actually doing this regardless of their worldview, whether they believe in God or not, or that all these other things that they could cling on to that makes them pro-life or not, it's almost irrelevant when that time comes for them in their own life, when their husband or wife or whoever is dying. They put it on hold. They put their little belief on hold to take care of that person. So they even believe it. You know what I mean? Even the pro-lifers might believe it if they had to experience it themselves. And that's the sad part, is like, why do people have to experience pain themselves in order to be like, oh, I get it now. Now I know what it's like to have stage 4 cancer. Shit, if I knew it was like this all along, I would have advocated more for the unlimited supply of meth, whatever it's called. The pain relieving drug. Sorry, I forget the name.
It's not meth, the drug, though.
Yeah, no, I meant
no. Man, methadone.
Morphine. Thank you, morphine. So
methadone. Okay, it's not that either.
No.
Free Molly for all.
Well, the thing is someone's probably tried to do that to try to escape life, and it probably happened in an insanely horrible way, right? Like, and they didn't die. But if we're already so there, I guess the big question too is like, why are the votes not coming? How come no one's standing on the front porch of the fucking, their local courthouse with signs and saying this is a tragedy and this needs to change now? Like, it seems to be, once it comes to the voting part, everyone just kind of disappears.
That's sorry.
Sorry, you go ahead, Denny.
I mean, yeah, it's like not even the left of the left, it's like you go to like a human rights page, you go to the Progressive Democrats page, for example. They have everything covered except for the right to die. So they're not even caring about this issue and how everything is carried out. Like, for example, Final Exit Network, they can be there when you die, but they can't touch you or assist you in any way. The same goes for Switzerland. You have to do, drink the stuff yourself. And also there's cases like Terry Schiavo where, if they, stuck a needle in her arm and just been done with it, that's murder. But no, we can't do that. We have to, starve her to death for 10 days. Like, I mean, it's just totally ridiculous. Sorry, Amanda.
No, it's okay. This is more of a question that I was actually thinking of just the other day. Is like, so we're going backwards as a civilization in oh so many ways. I mean, and so, you know, with that in mind, it doesn't surprise me that it's not on the lips of any politician anywhere. I mean, it disappoints me, but it doesn't surprise me. That having been said, considering how far backwards we're going with things, how safe are our uh, um, hospice accommodations at this point? Like, is that something? Because I honestly don't know. I mean, do pro-lifers get their undies in a bind about hospice too? I'm not aware very much about what the pushback to that is. I mean, I would think that there isn't, because I would think that they would be at least that, you know, accommodating towards the agony of death. But I worry about it. I mean, I worry that we're going to go backwards on what we do have. I mean, hospice is not the right to die. I'm not trying to lump them into the same thing, but it's the closest thing that we have, and I'm grateful for it, just in the sense that without it, we're really screwed. I mean, you know, if it's the difference between hospice and nothing, I'll take hospice any day. But I worry that it's just another piece of medical intervention that pro-lifers will try to roll back. And that's, I might be incredibly wrong about that. I mean, but I mean, the one thing about a lot of politicians is that they're old, so they may value hospice a lot, you know, secretly, a lot, very strongly. But you know, if that happens, then there's, you know, there's very little hope of things moving forward for a very, very long time.
I've actually never heard of anybody speak against hospice. Either they don't know how it works, or they, you know, they just accept it. So it seems like hospice is pretty safe. At
Oh,
least
I
it knows what's going to happen 5 years down the road.
Yeah.
It might be safe only in not the way that we want it to be safe, but who cares as long as it's safe. But I think it could be safe in the sense that pro-lifers will always see hospice as a pro-life activity. You're trying to keep these people alive because life is so precious, and you just have this gift, you know what I mean? But ironically, there's contradictions there, obviously, because what if it's God's will for them to go, you know? They're intervening on God's will. Anyway, that's a different subject of itself. But no, you're right.
It does, though. I mean, because if you know, if there was some exposure of how slow the nurses walk, you know, as the term we learned recently, you know, if there was some exposure, and right to die activists were doing that exposure of like how much semi right to die is actually going on in hospice, you know, that could go both ways as far as what pro-lifers then perceive it as. It could work, you know, that could be the tipping point. So it's all very delicate, isn't it?
No,
Yeah.
but you're right. That's such a great selling feature, is to be like, we're already doing this right now. We're already doing it. All the nurses are doing it. It's just not this like, it's not this like really overt, we're gonna kill you now kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's under the umbrella of prevention. You know what I mean? Like
the problem is, will they go, oh, you're right, or will they go, oh my God, you're right, we got to stop this? Like, you know, it just depends.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, you know, I remember when Brittany Maynard got the right to die, you know, all the pro-lifers were like, you know, there's hospice care, you know, send her to hospice. So they were using anti-right to die rhetoric and promoting hospice as the alternative.
Yeah. And I don't know if that'll ever change, you know, as long as the people are still have this life is precious thing. Maybe not, though. Maybe there is some thing in there. Maybe we do have some golden ticket we're unaware of that can combine the two and make people just be like, yeah, why am I advocating for the hospice but not right to die? They're both almost equivalent, and maybe that could change people's minds, but it's getting people to the voting booth, that kind of really is the part that's going to be hard. It's barely to get them to vote for a president, much less a topic like this.
And a lot of people probably think that in America, like Washington and California, they probably think that the death with dignity is the right to die, like we're saying it should be, which is totally false. You got to be over 18, have less than 6 months to live, and doctors can deny you. And in California, well, actually, after it's determined that you have less than 6 months to live, you have to have a 15-day waiting period. Okay. And in California, 1 out of 3 people die during that 15-day waiting period. 1/3, that's a lot of people. And yeah, it's
Oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And a lot of these right to die, death with dignity things are not right to die at all. They're not. I mean, let's face it. They're nothing. They're just appeasing and pandering to the communities of, like, we covered this problem, so don't worry, we got your back, guys. I was even just doing a research just to double check my stats, but I thought it was 200 people per year take the death with dignity, but it's not. It's 292 people over the past 9 years that have taken the death with dignity. No, total
nationwide.
Well, sorry, I was looking at Washington and Oregon.
Oh,
So other states like Vermont and stuff, I'm not quite sure, but that number is way lower than I thought. And compare that number to 8 billion, right? Like it's like 0.0001% of the population. So there is a long way to go, and I hope we can make these arguments about that. A healthy 30-year-old should have the same decision power making as the 95-year-old with cancer.
exactly. One more thing about the Death with Dignity Act is that nobody can help you. You have to be strong enough to crush up the pills, mix them, and drink it really quick. So if you have something like ALS, where you're disabled, you are fucked. So this might make people want to go sooner than they have to. Like, let's say you have ALS, it's like, well, I'd like to live another month or two, but in 6 weeks, I might not be able to ingest the medication. So I'm gonna have to do it now before it's too late. So it puts pressure on people who wants to die. But yes, it should be for everybody. We want to put the right to die in the hands of the people, no matter what their condition is. And I think it's really insulting to declare that you have to be mentally ill or crazy to not want to live.
And even these advanced directives are doctor controlled, so they have an incentive to make more money, and there's a whole thing with that, right? The corruption there could be long and deep. But there should be at least an amendment to the advanced directive that just says, hey, this person I trust. It's just like you put someone on your last will and testament, this person I trust. It's stamped, whatever you call this, stamping of official stamping, but notarized. It's a notarized amendment to the advanced directive that says I trust this person to make decisions for me. So when I'm incapable of moving and I in my deep advanced stages of ALS, they're going to make the decision for me, not some strange doctor that has weird beliefs that goes to church on Sunday or whatever. That should be the least thing that should happen in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy how people think about this issue. But I mean, if you're 20, if you're 18, it's like you can buy a machine gun, for example, and shoot up a school or shoot up some other place. We had 2 mass shootings. But if you're 18 and you want a peaceful exit, you can't get it. You can't impose your will on yourself, but you can impose harm on others.
Yeah.
It's just
it's so screwed up, because I was just thinking about when that happened. I heard the news of the Texas shooting. I was thinking, just like, What if that kid had the right to die, or a process? Let's say he's under 18, whatever. There's a process when you're under 18 where you can apply for this, and you might have to have your doctor sign whatever the underage stipulations could be. Regardless, what if that was an option for him and he hated his life so much that he wouldn't have, a lot of people don't do violent things when they're not backed into a corner. A dog that's backed into a corner is going to bite. And a lot of these people that are depressed and hate life and all these, whatever it could be, the reasons, they might have just taken a just easy out rather than some kind of, I'm going to make a big, bold statement and be pissed off about, getting out and do whatever it is, shoot schools up or burn your house down or shoot your grandmother. Like these, if there was, it's so hard to like quantify these because you can't, because prevention is not a material thing, right? But he could have done that at 16. It would have prevented the shootings,
It's funny how the law is set up to where it's easier to actually murder other people. You can take a gun, go into a theater and shoot a bunch of people in horrific ways. But yeah, you can't have the peaceful pill. And what if those shooting victims, survive and are dealing with the trauma and want to die due to that trauma? Society is going to force them to relive it and relive it over and over again until they end up, making, ending their lives in the most gruesome way possible. Because as long as rational options are taken away from the individual will choose the irrational ones. So it's like, yeah, the peaceful pill over the bleach,
And even talking about prevention, like I was saying, is a good thing. People can say, I'm going to just opt out instead of doing some wild thing like burning myself into putting myself on fire and running into a crowd or whatever. Right? Like these things happen. The post event care is important too. Like let's say a school shooter, for example, just because that's topic of the, it's the news of the day. Like, should he have a right in jail to opt in for a peaceful exit to die while he's a prisoner in jail? Not even him, for example, just people in jail in general, in prison, whether it's death row people or people just serving a year or two, should they have an option too?
I think so. Most of them. I thought about this for a long time. Actually, that's a really great question, because I think the right to die should apply to everybody, and including prisoners. And some people can make will make the argument that, what if somebody kills somebody else just so they can get the right to die? Well, if the right to die was already available, there would be no need to do something like that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they should. And it is a point of contingency here, because a lot of people might get angry because they want those who victimize them to remain in prison, which I definitely understand. But what is being accomplished? I mean, your taxpayers' money. You're victimized by this person. Your taxpayers' money is going to their food.
Yeah.
If they want to die, it's like, it cleans out the prison population. It makes it so where the victims of these crimes don't have to pay for their meals.
Yeah, it's going to make people, the victims of the families of the victims, feel like they didn't get their fair justice because the person opted out early, or they just took the easy way out, or they're going to think these kinds of things.
And the victims should be able to have the same option to die. A lot of people can't handle it. So, options for people inside prison, options for people outside of it.
Yeah, and just because you committed a bad crime, and I mean, even if it's horrific, or even if it's a basic, I stole a pack of bubble gum from a 7-Eleven, like, you still have your rights. You should have a right, is all I'm saying. Yeah, you should still have that right over my autonomy, my life. It is still your life. You still own it, even if you suck for for doing shitty things.
I mean, and plus it's also related to the deterministic argument over free will. It's like, 90% of prisoners who had brain scans shown some malformations. So that affects their, we don't believe in free will. We're determinists. That means that, so these people are determinists just like we are. We just happen not to be killers.
Yeah, and that should foster some empathy, because you're kind of like, you see everyone in a weird way. I see them in a sort of victim. We're all victims, we're all ping pongs flopping around this ping pong game, and we don't know what is going to be our next hit. And some people are raised in a shitty family or whatever, and they never chose that when they were born, or they have a genetic thing of addiction or whatever, and nobody chose any of that. So like, that alone should be, for a reason for a peaceful exit.
I mean, it only takes like a little funk in the hippocampus or something to make you into a killer. I mean, that's how easy the brain damage can be. So yeah, people are brain damaged generally who commit heinous crimes. Physical brain damage.
Sorry, I keep turning off my maybe cut there. Sorry, Kevin.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, it's a really it's a complicated issue on some levels, and I feel like I mean, I have thought about this in the past, but there are certain details where I could definitely see my mind changing in various ways through more conversation about it. I wouldn't want to create a circumstance where, and I think you touched on this a little already, Danny, but I'm just kind of repeating it, but like, I wouldn't want to create a circumstance where prison is people's ticket to the right to die. So, I mean, I wouldn't, if you commit a crime, you can die, like I just, if it's already a human right in the regular world, then I think that people should be able to maintain that right once they're already in prison. That having been said, I could maybe see, depending on the severity of the crime, you having to do some amount of time. I mean, I sort of feel like if the crime is severe enough, then, I mean, you kind of do give up some of your rights. I mean, you're kind of, you've betrayed society to an extent that, yeah, we should have empathy for you. And I also, I don't think we should fall into the trap of acquiescing to people's desire to see other people suffer, right? So like the family members of a victim often want to see the worst things possible happen to those people that commit these crimes. I don't think that we should acquiesce to that. Like, I don't think that I don't fault them for feeling that. I would feel that if something really horrific happened to somebody that I love. I think that's just a human thing that's, it's hard not to fall into that amount of schadenfreude. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something that happens. But I don't think that it's something that the law should, like, make sure of. Like, if you're victimized in some sort of way, the law shouldn't make sure that the person responsible suffers unduly, especially because it's a deterministic universe and people are the way they are because of all kinds of things, blah 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 blah. So for people that have committed really heinous crimes, I think that the right to die should always be extended to them, especially if they are already, I mean, if there's any sort of like if there's any kind of chance that the death penalty is at all in play, like that's a possibility. I wonder sort of what happens to the death penalty in a right to die world. You know what I mean? Because if it's a human right, then somebody could always sort of choose that even before they're handed down that as a sentence, so to speak. So I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would. Like I said, I just would be careful about, like, oh, you're in prison because you smoked a joint. You want to die? Like, I just don't think that that's like the first thing we should be offering people for petty crimes. I mean, I'm not I'm not anti-prison necessarily, but I'm our current prison system. Let's put it that way. And it's hard for me as a person that hasn't done a ton of research on prison reform to know if we could reform our prisons enough to where rehabilitation is even a viable thing at all. I don't think it is for certain people and for certain crimes. And in those situations, I do think that the right to die should always be extended to those people, because they really shouldn't be put back out into society. You know,
Yeah.
What about
rapists, killer, monster individuals? I mean, they have lost their right to walk among us, as far as I'm concerned. So they should be allowed to exit. But
Well,
I also wouldn't, maybe they have to wait a couple months. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't think that would be the worst payback, even if, the right to die is seen as a human right, if they've betrayed society to that extent.
what about people who are nonviolent and are in prison, and they're going, they might be shanked or something by violent prisoners? It's like, yeah, why not have the right to die before you get murdered in prison? Sorry, Kevin, you was going to say something.
No, yeah, I was just kind of just thinking, what if someone uses the right to die? Let's say it's in effect. Everyone has the right to die in the free world, but in prison, you also have your right. I guess all I'm saying is, what if people do commit crimes knowing they can always just utilize the right to die at any time? That makes their crimes be more heinous, maybe, because they're like, screw it, I can just die after this and I don't care. You know what I mean? And if there's an idea that there's no punishment or consequences to the crimes that you're going to commit, then it could make the crime stats go up, because people might have this, like, I have nothing to lose sort of thing. I can always just opt in for the right to die after this crime that I commit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That is a tough one. That's definitely something to think about. I mean, these people definitely should have to stand trial before they get it, by the way. Yeah, we don't want to create an environment where people were like, okay, I can just do this and just have a way out. But then again, if the right to die is already available to them outside of prison, what would they gain?
Yeah, and it would go back.
So
it would go back to what I was saying earlier, maybe too, is they wouldn't bother doing the crime. They would just be like, I'll just get out of here and forget this whole crime drama. So there's that side of it too.
But then, yeah, it's like,
sorry.
It's like, yeah, and plus, I mean, I don't know if it would be an anti-deterrent, because if somebody's a killer, they're probably going to do it anyway.
Yeah, but what if it's a right, and then someone wants to commit a crime, but they know that in prison you could use taking away that right to die as a tool for deterrence of crimes. So if they think, if I go to jail for this crime, automatically just being in jail, your ability for right to die is gone. That might be a good deterrent, maybe too.
Yeah, that's an excellent freaking point. Excellent point. Because you don't.
What's that?
I like that. You have the ability to lose it. You can lose your right to die if you commit certain heinous enough crimes.
Yeah, it's like you do too many speeding, you get too many speeding tickets, they take your license away.
That's a brilliant argument, man. I really.
Thanks. Maybe, yeah. Treat the right to die as a privilege, not a right. Like people talk about your driver's license. It's a privilege that you get and you hold dearly to protect it. And maybe there's some commitments around it that make you kind of be a good citizen And if you don't do this, or if you don't do that or whatever, you get that right taken away for 6 months or forever or whatever.
I could see doing that in really extreme situations. You know, I don't know, but I do worry about being so quick to offer the right to die as sort of a balm for a faulty prison system. Like you were bringing up, like if you're worried about getting shivved in prison, well, you can just exit. Well, it's like, okay, I mean that gets a little bit past the idea of, I mean, yeah, they should have the right to die as a right, but they also shouldn't have to be in a dangerous situation because maybe they committed a petty crime and are stuck with a bunch of like really hardened criminals. Like,
Yeah.
So that gets a little tricky for me, where I don't want people to have to choose death over, getting raped in prison.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's just
I think
totally unfair. Yeah.
I actually think that, yeah, I'm interested in prison reform too, by the way. I think prisons should be segregated based on like what you did, your personality. Like if you were violent, you shouldn't be anywhere near somebody who's not into the gang lifestyle or something like that. It's horrible how they treat people. They treat everybody the same, whether you're a child rapist or somebody who committed insurance fraud.
And maybe the application to have the right to die in jail is no different than it would be outside of jail. Maybe it's on a case by case basis. So you apply for it, they go, okay, what's happening? And you go, hey, I was a pot smoker on a curb and I got caught for that, but I'm being raped by serial murderers. Like, can we either transfer me somewhere safe or give me the right to die? Because this is no life, and it's a punishment way beyond what I deserve. Not even the time. People always focus on the time. How long is your duration of time? But it's more about sometimes all the trauma you face in jail.
Oh, exactly. But yeah, so, prison reform is definitely important. How to go about this, I don't really think I've heard any discussions about the right to die while behind bars.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And it's in extreme cases, though, you think about it and you're just like, let's just say it's the Jeffrey Dahmer type, and they get like they do when they when they get their whatever it's called, sorry, when they get their, what's the word? When they get their sentence, sorry, God.
Okay.
they'll say you get 80 life sentences, right? They're like, you get 80 life sentences and 400 years of time. So someone that's clearly going to spend the rest of their life in jail, and so what is going to be productive about that? Like zero, other than making the family's egos kind of massaged a little and feel like there is justice being served. But man, what a massive bog down on the resources of the society to have to fund that, and for a life that even maybe they don't even want anymore. I don't know what the solution is, but yeah.
It's like this problem of hell argument. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Danny.
It's like this problem of hell argument. I mean, what's the point of torturing somebody for eternity if they don't get a chance to redeem themselves? If they're unredeemable and they're in prison for the rest of their lives and they want to die, it's like, yeah, it would be more efficient to deliver that right.
Yeah, I know.
I could see maybe possibly there being some argument of keeping some of those people alive for a period of time if there's something that we can like learn from them. I mean, because I mean, and that's that's certainly an area that I have no study in. I don't know if that's even something we, I mean, obviously I don't want living humans experimented on, but I mean, some of these brains are rare enough they do such aberrant behavior, that it might be a benefit to society to keep them around long enough to try to gain some, knowledge of what's making them tick and why they are the way that they are. And, so I could see that if there's some sort of public service in that sense, that they may be obligated, to have to do that.
Yeah.
And then they have the right to die.
I just thought of something. Who's that guy who does the America's Most Wanted? His kid was kidnapped and killed.
I
Forget his
don't
name.
know.
Talking about though.
Yeah, they didn't find out who the killer was until like 30 years later, and he confessed to it, and he was already in prison for doing that stuff to other people. He was in prison for 30 years until he actually spoke up about it. So we got to make sure all the cold cases,
That's true. Point. These people, a lot of times these people, they know each other and they know where the bodies are buried, literally. So yeah.
Well, that's another thing that you could have as the carrot on the stick incentive, is being like, we're holding your right to die option ransom until you provide us this and that kind of information. And that might be an incentive for some people to confess.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and also it could be a lot of people in prison are afraid to rat other people out, because they might be killed inside prison. That could give them the bravery to say who did what, and
That's true. They are held captive by the repercussions of their notifying police of information, because once you're a rat in jail, you're just the kind of, aren't you on the bottom of the totem pole for in there? I mean, you're pretty much just a cockroach at that point, right? But if someone's like, hey, I got, like, that's an option that I don't have to worry about, and so I can admit that Johnson in D3 is, he's the guy that killed XYZ. I don't know, man. It gets so muddy and so crazy. But here's a kind of bigger picture, though. Is the problem is life is the problem, and the problem is that there's parasites everywhere. There's exploitation everywhere, and there's never going to be some perfect utopia solution. I mean, granted, it could be a definitely better solution than what's currently happening. That's for damn sure. But it's good to keep in mind, though, too, that just human life, we're programmed by DNA to just be these apex predators that are gonna capitalize and exploit and be parasites on anybody else we can in order to get above. We'll step on anybody's head we need to get above, and those tactics, they're clever in jail. Some of the things they do are really clever and smart for gaining what they need to gain and getting what they need to get, and getting on the hierarchy, social hierarchy, and all that stuff too. So it's not going to be some big problem solver to everything, but damn, it could be a big step in the right direction.
it can mitigate a lot of bullshit, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic for sure. But we also have the problem of society too. We're all prisoners in our own bodies in freedom, or quote unquote. So maybe
it's like nature is our oppressor. We're kind of, the planet is kind of, it is a prison, where we are prisoners of our own DNA, prisoners of our conditioning, and we're not really free. We're not really free.
And just having an option out is the way to get that freedom, and some freedom, and to alleviate the stress and anxiety of being like, okay, is this the day that the drunken bus driver hits me? Could be, I don't know, but I don't want to play the game of continuing to put myself at risk for that. Some people have just straight up logic, like rational reasons for wanting to get out. They're not even really suffering that much. They're just like, I even heard a story recently too. I forgot who it was, but it was like a baseball announcer. He was like 55, had a great life. And he wrote on his letter, on his suicide note, is, I had a wonderful life. I am grateful. I feel so grateful and everything, but this is it for me. I don't want to go down that road of hospice, or I don't want to go down that road of ALS and all these other things.
It's,
And
it, oh, sorry.
I was just saying, yeah, that should be respected.
Absolutely. I mean, we know what's ahead of us. We don't know how we're going to be destroyed by nature, but we're going to be destroyed. And it's totally logical to want to take the highway to where you want to get to, as opposed to being a passenger being forced to take the back roads, if that makes any sense. Try to produce an analogy, and yeah, why take the back roads when you can take the highway?
Yeah, no, it's true. And people always declare something's wrong with somebody for wanting to get out early, but what is so wrong with stepping off the train tracks and not playing on them?
Well, these people have a really hard time of actually producing a sound argument to back up their claim that something's wrong with you if you don't want to experience anything anymore. Something is wrong with you if you want to die at 20, peacefully at 20 instead of violently at 80. I mean, our parents brought us into this world. So why should we be, forced to sit at the table until we learn to like it?
Yeah.
Like, eat your broccoli, live. Learn, if you don't like it, sit there until you eat it all and learn to like it.
And that's what life is. That's what society is doing. They're just love life. If you don't like it, something's wrong with you. Sit down and shut up and keep on eating your meal. Like, that's the treatment. This condescending, arrogant, you know what I mean? Parental, like infantilizing. It's like, fuck you.
Exactly. It's like, all of a sudden we're kids again. We're little babies. We have to be controlled. Just like our mothers, had to tell us what to do. Now society tells us how to live.
Yeah, it's like never ending. And then you have doctors telling you how to, when to poo when you're older. It's like something in your life, it seems it can't, and not always, but yeah, most of your life, there's something or somebody always telling you what to do and hanging over your head. Or some people are just like stuck with their living situation. That alone can just suck, stuck living with some jerkhead stepdad or something I hate, but whatever it is, I don't know. And like, it's rough to have to like deal with that shit.
Yeah, it's like for 18 years we are owned by our parents. We have to listen to them and do everything they say. And then when we're adults, we can't say, well, I don't like the situation our parents put us in the first place. I don't like the imposition that was imposed. I want out. So they say, no, you're wrong. So the society is basically keeping you a slave to your parents' decisions. So in a weird way, you're still owned by your parents if you don't have the right to die. If that makes sense. I'm trying to make articulate it.
You're even owned by the guilt of leaving, right? Like the guilt of wanting to die. Like, big confession here, I've thought about dying. But when I think about it, I'm thinking, man, I'm really gonna hurt my mom. She's gonna be really hurt. And it's sad, and we have a positive relationship for the most part, and that's great. But in a weird way, I'm captive still to this parenting thing, and I should be free of that. You think you would be able to be free of that, especially as a 40 plus year old. But no, yeah, I'm still kind of a victim to that, in the sense that when I go, I'm going to hurt my mom. I'm going to, the family dynamic is so powerful, and these feelings of obligations that you have with them when you never chose who they are ever, where you were born, you were thrown into that family, and you never, it's crazy that you're never kind of set free. It's really rare that you see someone kind of really break free from that, because it's a real psychological stronghold to overcome.
Yeah, the family unit and everything like that. It's like, one way to think about it is, okay, if I live long enough, I'm going to mourn my parents' losses. I'm going to cry over my parents dying. Or, what if I get mangled or something 2 years from now and my parents have to identify my body? That's not going to be any fun. So we're all screwed. And, it's like it's a situation where we cannot win. We can't win this game. There's no, what was that saying? There's no good way to play a bad game, or bad,
Yeah.
something like that. Amanda, have I heard you?
Yeah, sorry, I had to get into the sun a little bit. It was just so cold where I was sitting. So probably pretty loud where I am, though. I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's okay.
No, we're owned by the people that think we own us, but we're so owned by people's discomfort. I mean, one of the reasons we don't have access to this thing that we want is because people don't want to assess the way they feel about their own lives. I mean, the way that people live is completely set up so that people don't ever face what their actual opinions of being alive is. And because other people don't want to face that, somehow we're expected not to face that. We're not expected to want things out of that. We're expected to not come to conclusions based on those assessments. Yeah, it's just, I don't know what else to say. It's a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah, it's like we have to adhere to their coping mechanisms. They don't want to think about death. They want to think that life is positive. And I understand, life sucks. People are trying but to impose that mentality on others, to say that you have to, you have to be delusional too, like me, and want to live and love life. Well, I'm not saying people want to live or delusional, but you get my point, all right?
Yeah,
It's like
it is, and it's and then you social pressure, this feeling that if you bring any sort of death topics up, you're this big Debbie Downer, and you're the party killer, and sorry, I don't care. Getting to the point where I don't care. I want to talk about it and be like, hey, so this is what's going on here. Just a friendly reminder.
people love to hear what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear, because truth can be pretty damn hard to take in. It can break people's psychology. I get that, but it doesn't mean you have the right to force yourself on other people. A breakup can break your psychology, but I don't mean that I have the right to kidnap my ex-wife and bring her back home or something.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's just ironic, that toxic optimism shit is, you could watch a commercial about some depression medication and it's footage of people being happy walking on a beach, but the voiceover is saying, yeah, you could have suicidal ideation, you could have stomach ache and nausea and headache and insomnia and all these side effects from the drug.
Oh yeah, they talk. And the worse the side effects are, the most pleasant the image is. Like, you're going to get explosive bloody diarrhea and you're going to freaking die of a brain hemorrhage. And meanwhile, there's little kids, dancing in the sunset at the beach. And I think, I was hearing something about, I actually heard a commercial today about some depression drug that says that, it could lead to suicidal thoughts and behaviors. And I was wondering, does the medication cause suicidation, or does the expectations cause it? Because a lot of people are going in thinking that this pill is going to cure all of my problems. And when they realize at best it can only take a little edge off, that can make somebody suicidal. That can make somebody want to end it, because the medication is not working the way the commercial said it would.
I don't know. My personal experience has been that I've tried all kinds of depression medication. Nothing's worked ever once. But I tried an OCD medication. I have a really bad OCD. And I don't know, a year ago or something, I tried an OCD medication. And that was the only medication I've ever tried where I genuinely had that suicidal ideation. And I was thinking about it in a creepy way. I felt really uneasy. I didn't feel like I had control of myself. I was scared the shit out of me.
Oh man.
So I quit it, after a couple weeks. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it could be both, though. The chemical reaction, but also a placebo effect of expectations of this can happen. So you build yourself up to it. I don't know. Guys,
I think very likely that it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
Experience both. Yeah.
it could be.
We live in such a dishonest society. It's like you see it in the pharmaceutical commercials. You see it with the whole pro-life agenda. Life is great. It's like we're dishonest with ourselves. We're dishonest in society.
Well, there's a certain idealization of innocence, right? Like, there's certain ways in which, we're harangued to grow up and not be children. But then there are other ways in which, like, frankly, people want people to stay innocent little kids forever. And death is a big one as far as, people want to have, it's expected that people sort of have uninformed, childlike notions of death, and planning for, not, for the end of your life and things like that. I mean, these are just sort of, people never really grow up. And I wonder if there's a certain amount of shame that we can sort of impose on people. I mean, I'm joking, honestly, but I mean, there's a certain amount of, there is a certain amount of the innocence that people insist on around some of these topics is so indulgent, and it causes so much fucking harm that people insist on staying in these little fantasy worlds about not only what life on this planet is, but the need to exit and all of this stuff. That, I mean, I think it can be pointed out just how stupid it is, how absurd it is, how indulgent it is, how childish, some of that could be rendered into a very useful tool for us, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, we really hope that this podcast and our work inspires people to change their minds on this issue. Got an uphill battle, but we'll continue to make our arguments and make our case before the world. And I guess that's all I got to say.
Great. Well, I think we had a great conversation about these awesome topics for sure. Thanks, guys, so much for coming. Thanks for listening or watching. You can also check our other sites out, social media, and I'm not good at this part, whatever. Yeah, go to our website, and if you have an interest in being a guest on our show, reach out to us. There's a section on our website where you can share your stories, and if you don't want to be on video or even audio, you can share your stories with text and be a part of a blog. If you want to be a blog post, there's also a section there. Or if you want to just email us at info@therighttonolongerexist.com, and just tell us your story. And if you want us to even read it on a show, that's good too. We want to have people feeling really engaged about getting involved and voicing their opinions about their stories and experiences on this type of tyranny, right? Or prohibition. I mean, it's really what it is. So the more voices that are out there against it, pushing back, I think is better for this movement. So please check out our website. We'll have that up in about a week. So if it's not there now, it'll give it a couple days. We'll have it. But yeah, thanks so much, guys, for this combo. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really glad we got to make a podcast. I know it's been a while. We have been working really hard on building our website, which is why we haven't been focusing on podcasts, but we're really looking forward to making many, many more and spreading the word. So let's all get involved, and together we can make it a change.
Yes.
I'm not trying to make a political stump speech, but together we can change.
That's what it sounded like. It was
Like
kind of
Joe
funny.
Biden or some politician.
That had a funny kind of feel to it. Yeah, but hey, whatever. It works. Anyway, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care. Hope you're well. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Thanks so much, everybody. It's been a pleasure, as always.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Until next time.
You have been listening to the Right to No Longer Exist, a Right to Die podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed your time and found the information valuable. Please visit us at rightttonolongerexist.com to learn more about our organization and mission statement. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at The Right to No Longer Exist. There you will find links to our individual channels as well. If you would like to contact us directly, please email info@therightttonolongerexist.com. Thank you for your time, and let's remember that during the time that it took to listen to this podcast, dozens, if not hundreds of people endured a horrific death by suicide. Let's fight together for a world where this doesn't happen anymore. See you next time on the Right to No Longer Exist podcast.